Hey, Soul Sisters! Yeah, wow, it's been a while since I did art. I've been in a very bad art block, but hopefully this is me getting out of it, because I did art for this video, so there we go. Today I'm going to talk about my story Branded, and I said I was going to talk about it a long time ago, and then I didn't do that because I'm horrible. I actually haven't even thought about this story like in depth since I was 16, so like since 2014. So that's a long time ago. Wow. But it's a very interesting story, at least to me, so let's get started. The story takes place in a universe where everyone is born with a brand on their forehead. If it says saved, that means that they're going to heaven, but if it says damned, that means that they're going to hell. This causes people to be put into two categories and two different lifestyles. The saved are put into prestigious schools and extravagant housing, while the damned are thrown out on the streets and forced to make it on their own. And they don't really interact with each other at all. The saved don't typically even give a second glance to the damned because to them it's like, what even matters about them? They're gonna end up in hell anyway, so they mean nothing. I don't want to learn about them. And since this society is obsessed with heaven and hell, they kind of made their own heaven and hell on Earth due to this. The only nice thing that the damned have from the government is healthcare, which, wow, America doesn't even have that. But it's because it's possible for a damned to give birth to a saved and vice versa. So everyone goes to the same hospital. This also causes overpopulation because if you're a damned, it's better to live in the hospitals than on the streets. So they usually try to get pregnant a lot for their own safety. There's also an imbalance of like thoughts on one another because if a save does a very bad thing, it's usually shrugged aside because hey, they're getting into heaven, so it must not be that big of a deal. But if a damned does something even a little, like steal food so that they could live, which they have to do in that society because they're not given a lot of stuff, it's like, wow, this is why you're a damned. So there's that big imbalance. Let's get to the main characters. This story follows Dorothea and Imogen. Dorothea is a saved who, ever since she was a child, she's noticed that a lot of the things that go on in heaven on earth is kind of twisted. If you have even like one strand of hair covering your brand, they see it as a big disrespect. And if you like question or doubt the system at all, or if you imply that being a saved doesn't automatically make you a good person, it just means they're going to heaven, they like shut you out until you ignore it. And I mean, it's not really a sound system they've got, and if everyone wasn't conditioned to turn their heads, there'd be a lot of questions around. So when Zia is about 14 years old, she decides to sneak into Hell on Earth and see what it's like. It's pretty easy to do. She just covers her brand with her hair. In everyone's mind, it's like, why would a save cover their brand? They're supposed to be really proud of it. And it's like kind of forbidden to cover your brand if you're a saved, but it's kind of like you have to cover your brand if you're a damned. So it's just so easy. Just cover your hair. Now you're a damned. Good job. You're going to hell now because you got bangs. And also, no one's really expecting a save to go to hell on earth because why would you do that? So no one questions it. And what Thea heard in stories is that hell on earth is like a crime-ridden place with like fires and death and destruction, chaos and total anarchy. She expects it to be like what people really imagine hell to be like, because that's what she was told. But when she goes there, she sees that it's just a boring little place. There's like houses and shops and restaurants, and people are like polite to one another. Of course, it's less extravagant and funded, and everything looks like it was made from scraps, but other than that, it's a totally normal place with totally normal people. So Zia is very confused. And she goes into one of the restaurants and finds a girl working there who's around her age, who looks trustworthy enough, and asks her about the place. The girl, Imogen, explains that they're a society built from nothing, where all they have in the world is each other, and it's less like they're trying to get to the top, and more like they're just trying to get by. You work in exchange for resources, and no one really, like, hoards anything, they just take what they need to get by. And yeah, there's still bad people there, but that's not most of them. They're all just kind of unfortunate enough to get stuck with the brand. So this totally baffles Zia, because it goes against everything she ever heard from the saved. So she spends the rest of the day just wandering around Hell on Earth and seeing how everything works. And I mean, it's broken down and kind of sad, but it's wholesome. And it's not structured by, like, rules and guidelines and pride, which is what she's so used to. It's it's built from rubble, but it's humble and kind. And when she gets back to heaven on earth, it's like everything wrong with the place is more obvious and screamed in her face, since she actually has something to compare it to. And a few months later, she goes back to hell on earth and she finds Imogen, and she gives her a gift to thank her for explaining it all to her. And she tells her that she's a saved who sneaks out. And Imogen brings her out to dinner, and they both talk about how different their societies were and how different they were raised. And it's like really interesting because they never got to actually talk to someone outside of their norm. So they're just learning more and more about this. And Zia, she keeps coming back to Hell on Earth and learning more and more about what's going on in the world, not only from her perspective, but from Imogen's. And she does this for years until finally she can kind of fit the world together into there's something very big that's being hidden. There's like subtle things all around that's like there's something wrong. There's something about this world and this society that they all built together that's just it's fake. It doesn't make sense. So she decides she's going to get to the bottom of things since literally nobody else is gonna. So she packs all her things and she leaves heaven on earth for the last time. And she and Imogen try to figure out what's going on. Now, the story's less developed than a lot of my others, and I don't have a lot of things set in stone. And I was thinking before in the old version of spoiler alert, they find out that it's the doctors that are that are in control of everything, cuz they get to choose what brand goes on what baby. So they're in control, and they could take bribes from rich families to make their kid a saved, or they could just, if they have a grudge on someone, they can make their child damned. So like that's interesting. But I mean, there could also be some cool other thing, like a supernatural being that can see where people go when they die before they're born and brand them with it. Or maybe there's not even a real heaven or hell in this universe, and it's just some being that wants to fuck around with everyone. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities for how this ends. And the story would take a lot of digging around with to get fully developed, and it's not really my top priority story, but I just hope that one day I can actually get to this and have a stable plot line. Alright, so that was Brandon. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I missed making videos about my OCs. I wrote that down in the script. I'm starting to not miss it. I'm exhausted. I'm full of anxiety and my back hurts. Also, I got a new mic. I finally listened to you guys. I have been listening. I just don't have money. I'm hoping this mic didn't fuck up any of the audio, but it probably did. I'm working on it. Thanks for watching. Love you, Boos. Goodbye. Jake! Ah! Quit being loud. This is a new mic. It's really fancy.